This is actually a really interesting dichotomy because normally it's the good guy who gives birth to the bad guy. Mm-hmm. If you look at any other Marvel, DC, any other movie, comic, whatever, it's always the good guy that comes first, who then births the bad guy by his actions, inactions, or what have you. It's interesting to see it happen in the opposite direction for once. Mm-hmm. Now, please understand, this is not Cartoon Joker, Movie Joker, or anything else. This is a completely original Joker and Batman. Mm-hmm. Like, there is any number of different tellings of these stories, but this is a very specific one. And I really do hope that they continue with this, because this was a very fantastic movie. I'd love to see this Joker go up against that Batman. Like, that would be a very interesting thing to see. I think it would be, yeah. Mm-hmm. But, I really, this movie did something to me that I have never been able to do in any other movie ever. Mm-hmm. Not only did I sympathize with a man who eventually became the villain, I sympathized with a man who I know, as a viewer outside of that realm, mm-hmm. that this particular person is capable of so much evil mm-hmm. and chaos and murder mm-hmm. and any other number of things. But I not only sympathize with him, I'm actively rooting for him. Mm-hmm. Like, I have never done that. And I actually felt, I felt sick because of that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I do think it's a very, very amazing portrayal of the Joker. But I felt sick with how much this made me want to root for this guy. And even more is, this is the first time that I've ever had to sit on the edge of my seat in a theater. I have never done that. Now, Star Wars, which if you all saw our stream a little while ago, yes, I'm dating us. I have not done that with any Lord of the Rings. I've not done that with any other movie besides the Joker. I was literally at the edge of my seat from the halfway point on. You know, when the first cogs start kicking into place, that is when I started sitting on the edge. And that is when I started being like, oh my God.
Yeah, and I think that's the actual point of this is to make you uncomfortable, and it does. And
it does that very well.
I know a lot of people that felt uncomfortable and didn't like the movie because of that, but that is the point of it. It's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. But the other thing you need to consider, and this is where I kind of want to talk, my main point is, this movie is on a perspective of the Joker, who has schizophrenia, who has depression, who has all this other stuff going on in him,
and the world failed him.
And how much of this is as reliable as you make it to be? There are many things that I personally, and this is just obviously from this point on, it's just
us,
my thoughts, my feelings about this and everything. I do feel that the Joker was not as abused as he makes it out to be, but the perspective of what we see from him makes it seem so, because he wants, in a sense, to be justified. Who knows, maybe a lot of these things that we see, we're not seeing the entire perspective. We see one perspective, which is his, but the one time that we do see it fully realized is with the girlfriend that he has, that is not a real girlfriend, where he's just a lady that he's talked around for God knows how long.
And the fantasy he had where he was originally on the Murphy show.
Exactly. So how many of the stuff that we saw
was real?
Was he really beaten up at the beginning of the movie? Did that lady actually told him to stop looking at his kid? You know, a lot of this stuff you can make the argument a point. Maybe he wasn't as abused as he makes it out to be. Sure, is the point of the movie that? Maybe there's a good point to be had. Was the therapist that he was visiting actually not listening to him?
Or was she even there to begin with?
Yeah, because there is a good point to be had is when she asked him, did you know why you're here? And he does have a flashback where he's hitting himself against a white door or something like that. He might as well be sitting on Arkham the entire time that he's going through this back. And all of this could be a flashback that he's thinking back through. Who knows how much of this is reliable in that sense? How much is not? Is Thomas Wayne not his father? He does find a picture of his mother with on the back when he flips it around. He does have with love TW.
But that could be any number of other names. It
That
doesn't
can be
necessarily
normal
have
things.
to be Thomas
Yeah,
Wayne.
and Thomas Wayne is rich enough to actually fake documents like.
True. Very true.
So, how much of that is, and I think that's the beauty of this movie. This movie can be interpreted in so many different ways. It can
I
be
actually
shown.
I talked to someone very close to me in my family that, well, she's part of my family, but I'm not going to go much further than that. And she actually hated this movie because it basically is an indictment of people with mental health issues, basically she claimed this movie is demonizing those people who have these issues. I actually see it as a slightly different way, and obviously, if you want to talk about how the politics around this, I actually seen this slightly differently. And again, art is interpreted by the individual who observes it. I actually see this movie as an indictment of the system that failed to help the Joker.
Yeah.
Because he was doing okay, but the world around him forced him down, and he wasn't getting any help.
And his situation got worse when he lost his medication,
worse and worse. And that's exactly why I see it as an indictment of the system that failed him, because the system cut funding. It threw him to the wolves and expected him to just exist as a normal person, when that's not the case. He needed that constant
he does have a quote. He never says it out loud, but it's written down in his thing. Is the what something about people around you expecting to be normal when you have a mental illness.
Oh, I remember that quote, and I'm just like, that is.
That is really spot on.
When you have a mental illness and people around you expect you to act like you don't. That's what it was.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just like, that is such a perfect representation of what people see, even mental illness today. Like, that's exactly what it's like. Like, I do suffer from depression every now and again, and it's something that I have to battle constantly. I'm assuming you probably have something very similar. We all have issues that we're working through, but it is not taken as seriously as someone who has actual physical trauma, like losing an arm or a leg, or they're going through cancer. It's like, it's just something that's like, this movie is showing the ramifications of someone who does not get the help they need. It's showing someone who, if they don't get that help, what their mind could effectively go down. I'm not saying other people do, but I'm also saying that it's really hard for someone to just be like, okay, I'm over it now that I don't need my pills and such. Like, oh, don't need them anymore, I guess I'm gonna be a good person. It's like, that's not how that works. These mental issues and diseases and things like that need this help, if they don't get that, this is very easily something that could happen to anyone who has these issues. And we're not saying that these people have these issues will go down this. It's saying that if they don't get that help, that is one of the many possibilities of ways it could go. They could either get more help, something that they have to pay for out of pocket, and maybe that helps them get through it. Maybe they talk to people who aren't official and paid help, and they can work their way through that. Maybe they find a particular type of drug that helps them work through it, that they don't have to go see a therapist anymore. So many different possibilities exist. This is just one of the most extreme paths that someone with these issues could have. I really do see it more as an indictment of the system that failed, rather than as an indictment of the people who have these issues.
And this movie can be broken down into many different parts. I have a psychology degree. My perspective is completely different from. I take it more as a character story than anything else.
Oh, it definitely is. It's very much about this one man's life.
And it's really interesting as how a lot of these mental illnesses are portrayed. I find it very accurate in a lot of this stuff. As somebody that studies this and has read a lot of studies and a lot of cases on this kind of stuff, I find it to be really well appropriate. I don't find it to be as somebody like, oh, this is what mental illness is like. No, this is what mental illness can lead to. This is what it can become. This is what it is, and it can be felt sometimes like that. So I really like the way that it's portrayed here. Is it extremist? Yeah, it's an extreme case, and it's obviously fiction. And it is the point. It's just like everything else. This is not the life of somebody that is a real person. This is a comic book adaptation of in a realistic sense, because it is very realistic in a lot of sense. But it doesn't attempt to
say
say
that this is
not
what
the-
will happen
yeah,
if they don't get their
exactly.
help.
This is not the answer, but this is attempts to bring questions that you as the viewer are supposed to reflect on the economy, reflect on the politics of it all, because there's a very political mindset of this. This is a classist system.
Very.
There's a mental discussion here that you can have. There is a discussion that you can have about unemployment, about even when they talk about the beginning about how people they trash. It is a trash problem.
Yeah,
There
because
is-
there's a protester, not a protest, but oh god, what are those called? It's something that happens when unions get involved, where they have. I think it's just a protest where basically the workers are from the trash company are just they're protesting.
working.
They stop working, and until they have someone sit down and talk about their demands and try and get things worked out, they're not going to collect trash anymore.
Correct. Yeah. So this movie doesn't attempt to answer anything.
It just
This
shows a possible
problems.
path
It
of
shows
a man descending into madness.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I don't.
No,
mean to
it's
cut
fine.
you
It's fine. It shows problems. It shows issues. It shows things that want you as the viewer to reflect on, wants you to think about. And I think that's the beauty of this movie, because this movie is not. It's about Arthur, but it's more about. There's so many things that you can talk about in this movie. How much of this movie is true? How much of this movie you can see as the story? I think there are a lot of things that you can claim that are not there. I think there are a lot of things that could very well be there, but I think that's why I like this movie so much. There's so many different angles you can think about it through. For example, one thing that I thought about that I didn't think the first time around until I was thinking about it later on. Do you believe that he killed the girl that he was dating?
I don't think he would have had it in him to do so, but again, this is just a question. My answer is I don't think he would have been able to. I think she would have. I think she asked him to leave, and after another second or two of hesitation, he just left.
This is at the lowest point in his life after he realized his mother had lied to him. He went to support. He went for support. The reason why I bring this up is because there is a brief scene when he comes back to his own room, his own house, after he visiting his girlfriend, and he's sitting down. I think he's dancing at that point again as well. I don't remember.
Couldn't
And
tell you.
there is sirens on the background. There's a siren going on in the background with the lights and everything. It's hinted. We don't know. We don't see the girl again either, so we don't know. But this is a type of perspective where some people could argue this is a possibility, something that could have happened. We don't know. We might have known. How much did the police know from the get-go? How much did they realize later on? It's just an interesting paradox, things to talk about and everything.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much, I think, my discussion on this. What do you have anything that you want to drop?
Not really.
add on
It's just
this?
it was a very interesting movie, and one of the first times, like I said, that I've ever sat on the edge of my seat and couldn't sit back because I was just so invested in the character. So, no, I don't really have anything else to say.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for watching this two-part series of this. I'm gonna divide it in two parts because
Okay.
it's just
Yeah, it's
way
a
too long
pretty
and
long-ass
everything. So
video.
the first part, thank you so much for watching pretty much all of it. If you did, if you didn't, then go watch the first part. Watch link right there. Anyway, this is pretty much our first couple videos here on this channel. Mostly discussing videos and movies and books and everything that I don't discuss on my main gaming channel. But yeah, if you please consider liking and subscribing this, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys. See you later.